Hey, do you like Batman? Oh, I love Batman! With the mask and the cape and the belt and the car and the fight bad guys, yeah! Well, you're in luck because on this new show, you get to see him as a little kid. Is he gonna have the mask and the cape and the other stuff? No, it's like a little kid whose parents died and he's very sad. Don't you think it's weird that Superman's had more live-action shows than Batman? I mean, Batman's technically a human with some cool gear, while Superman's got special effects coming out of his ass, right? One of these guys throws down with robots, aliens, and monsters on a regular basis, while the other, well, half of his rogues gallery are guys in sharp suits. At first sight it might be surprising, but it starts to make sense when you factor in the movies. For the last 25 years, live-action Batman has been almost exclusively a movie star, while Superman's crossover potential has been a bit looser. From what I've read, there were actually copyright issues preventing Bruce Wayne from showing up on Smallville. In that time, Batman's given us 7 big-budget movies, 4 cartoons, 3 killer next-gen video games with a 4th on the way, and more comic titles than anyone can count. But somehow, a weekly hour-long series starring flesh-and-blood performers and the Dark Knight in his full glory still seems beyond the pale. There are a lot of factors that have kept Batman from the realm of live-action television, but given what shows like Hawaii Five-0 and Fringe and Nikita and Arrow have been able to pull off week to week, I don't imagine budget is one of them. The reason we often hear is that they don't want to dilute the brand, which I can kind of understand. It's only a matter of time before we hit peak Batman if we haven't already. But even though a Batman show isn't on the table, the compulsion to put some kind of depiction of the Dark Knight saga on the airwaves is so strong that there have been several attempts over the years to make some sort of Batman-related series. And this being Hollywood, some of them have been pretty damn harebrained. There was the one-season joy known as Birds of Prey, which I've already commented on. A couple of years ago, they were kicking around a Grayson pilot that would chart a teenage Dick Grayson before he became Robin and before he met Bruce Wayne. I'm not making this up. Somebody actually thought there was a show worth watching about a kid in the circus who's going to be a crime fighter someday. Hell, Smallville was first pitched as a globe-trotting Bruce Wayne adventure hour before it mutated into the 10-season Superman prequel that we all know and love. There are other things they could do in that vein. Many fans have clamored for Nightwing to get his own show, since he's one of the most popular characters who hasn't gotten his due in live action yet. He might finally get his chance in the Man of Steel sequel. The comic series Gotham Central was basically a Hill Street Blue-style police procedural with a twist of Batman and his supervillains hanging out in the background. That kind of thing would lend itself to some great TV. And now Fox is moving forward with this new Gotham series, which will give us young Bruce Wayne, young Jim Gordon, young Penguin, young Catwoman, young everybody apparently. The producers have said that the show will end when Bruce becomes Batman. Okay. These prequel shows are kind of in now. I'm sure Smallville has a lot to do with that, frankly. We've got stuff like Bates Motel and Hannibal giving us these modern, early days reimaginings of familiar characters. So they're like, hey, since we can't do a straight-up Batman show, maybe another angle will do the trick. Which begs the question, is Batman the series an unreasonable proposition at this point? Is a primetime show where Batman gets to be at the center of his own story and an adult really still off the table? It depends on who you ask. Let's look at a few things. Even after Batman and Robin officially torpedoed the franchise, and superhero movies in general, there was still demand for a Batman movie that got it right, that was dark and serious, and not just made to sell shitty toys. That's what everyone wanted. That's definitely what I wanted. Not a TV show, a proper movie reboot. Maybe because most of the superhero shows at the time were kind of crap. Lois and Clark had just wrapped up, and I don't think anyone was demanding the Batman version of same. Come to think of it, I have no idea what that would even look like. There were many that argued that none of the 4 films we'd gotten so far had really delivered on Batman's film potential. And now, to put it simply, they have. It took them 8 years to finally get it going, but now we have a completed Batman film series that was a massive hit with audiences all around, and even turned him into a major awards contender. But the Dark Knight trilogy is over, much to the studio's dismay, I'm sure. When next we see Batman on film, he's going to be hanging out with other superheroes. It's not like there's a danger of them never making another Batman solo film, but who knows when that'll even come about. Any new take of Batman at the movies is going to have to find a way to be its own cool thing, but somehow different from the Nolan films. And every time they make a new Batman cartoon, they have to find a way to not be the animated series. But the animated series was largely influenced by the Burton films, and the Nolan films were largely influenced by the animated series. So a TV show in primetime might be able to draw much more freely from the animated series and the Dark Knight films, and all it has to not be is the 60s Adam West Batman. And we could all get our live-action Batman fix without the slog of waiting 3 to 4 years for the next chapter. Now, even if they did all that, there would still be concerns. Chief among them is Arrow. It's one of the best things that DC's cooked up in some time, and it owes a lot of its success to the Dark Knight films. Hell, comics Green Arrow started out as Batman with a bow and arrow before coming into his own later on. So, what happens when the original model shows up to the party? Is there room on our screens for 2 shows featuring street-level DC crime fighters? Now, if Batman were on a different network, which Gotham will be, that might take some of the edge off, as long as they're not competing for a time slot. After all, almost every network has a cop show or a legal drama, and I don't see those brands getting diluted. There's another question that's laid the groundwork for a lot of these prequel shows in the first place. Are we going to watch a show that's full of stuff we've seen before? Is the promise of yet more fully realized but otherwise very familiar renditions of Joker and Catwoman and Two-Face enough to get the masses to tune in for what would have to be a hit show? Or does Arrow have the advantage and more creative freedom by using less familiar characters making their live-action debut? Basically, it's the reason that Merlin got 5 seasons and Camelot got 1. Now, I could spend another 5 hours talking about what I would want to see if they went ahead with this, but I'm going to keep this just to the highlights. The animated series wasn't very serialized. There was more continuity as the show progressed, but there was never a definitive order of events, like a new show would have. That show also never got into Batman's early days too much, or how Batman's presence changed Gotham, nor did it give us a full story on how Robin became Robin. There was kind of a big gap there. And Robin's origin is much easier to play out on TV than it would ever be in the movies because it doesn't fit into that superhero 3-act structure. So, we could finally get a definitive modern take on his origin. And there are a lot of other characters that would be fun to flesh out in a series format that the movies can never touch, like making Catwoman a main character or turning Two-Face and Black Mask into season-long villains. Batman doesn't have to dismantle a doomsday weapon every week. There could be more detective work, which none of the 7 movies really had much time for. And for most operations, he wouldn't need to break out the Batmobile, which didn't appear on the animated series as much as you probably think it did. So there's a lot of material they could explore that the cartoons and movies never touched, and they wouldn't need to break the bank doing it. That's all for my random Batman TV thoughts for now. What I'm trying to say is, if a Batman show wasn't an option before, I totally understand. If they really think there's a good story to tell with this Gotham idea, more power to them. I'm not sure how they'll keep it interesting for more than a season, since at some point little Bruce has to leave the city the show is named after and travel the world. But I'll definitely tune in. It sounds like it might be really cool, and I hope it's a worthy addition to the Batman mythos. But if what they really want to do is a straight-up Batman show, the way I see it, they can totally do that now. They don't have to keep stalling and beating around the bush. And more importantly, I would watch the shit out of that show. How about you? Are you looking forward to Gotham? Do you think they could do Batman on a TV budget? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, favorite, and subscribe for more fanboy tirades, and I will see you next time.